following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your main event, where news and opinions on the sport of kings collide. WrestleMedia is proud to present The Wrasslun Show.
Welcome to The Wrasslun Show, part of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling, and wrestling is everything. I'm at Adam Conta, and I'm joined by a very special guest this week, one of the first people to ever jump on board at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and support us, longtime main eventer, Andrew Walsh. Andrew, my man, welcome to WrestleMedia.
Thank you very much for having me, Adam.
I'm the one who should be thanking you. I mean, you helped put this show and keep it running, so thank you very much for that. Now, before we jump into anything, I do want to address a rumor, a question that a lot of our contributors want answered, which is, are you in fact Michael Walsh under a pseudonym?
I am not Michael Walsh.
And I'm not Danny Parkhill, but this is not the lasting mark.
No.
This is the Wrasslun Show. We're going to break down some of the news of the day. Andrew, for our listeners who may not be familiar, tell them a little bit about yourself and why you're kind of like the perfect wrestling fan.
Well, it all started when I was young. I liked wrestling ever since I was, a little kid. Moved to Ottawa and found a lot of indie wrestling around this part of the town, and just really love wrestling.
Well, that's kind of what makes a fan, man. You just got to love it, and you really do love it, so much so that you are willing to financially support us schmucks every single month, and we appreciate that. And if you want to be a really awesome kid like Andrew, please head over to WrestleMedia.ca, follow that Patreon button to patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, and then throw a few ducats in the bucket and support us. Or you can come out to some of these great shows we're going to be at, including Rock Solid Wrestling's Danger Zone event at the Collingwood Curling Club this Saturday in Collingwood, Ontario. What a main event. A submission match for the Canadian Heavyweight Championship. Jake O'Reilly with Asher Benjamin in his corner, taking on Canadian Heavyweight Champion and Impact Wrestling star Cody Deaner with former WWE Intercontinental Champion and UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock in his corner. Tickets are on sale now at rocksolidwrestling.ticket.ca. Stick around, because in just a little bit, you're going to hear from one of the men in that match. Jake O'Reilly is going to be a guest on the show today. We're going to chat with him about the upcoming match in Collingwood, about his tag team with Anthony Darko, and about how he's incorporated jiu-jitsu into his style of professional wrestling. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one. Stick around for that, coming up in just a little bit. In 1 week's time, on Sunday, May the 19th, we are going to be at Cottage Country Comic-Con at the Mariposa Conference Center in Orillia, Ontario, featuring WWE Hall of Famers The Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine, collectively known as Rhythm and Blues. Visit cottagecountrycomiccon.com for more details. And finally, Saturday, June 15th, Chinlock Wrestling and House of Hardcore's Legends Convention and Chinlock 5 event from the Leon Center in Kingston, Ontario, featuring Bret the Hitman Hart, the Brainbusters, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, also of the Four Horsemen, of course, Mark Henry, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Hart, Tugboat, Swoggle, Jimmy Corderas, Tommy Dreamer. Who knows who else is going to show up there? A large percentage of those names, all Hall of Famers. I know you're going to be going to the show, Andrew. Who are you most excited about meeting at the convention?
I'm actually excited to meet Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson.
It's probably a rare opportunity.
And also Mark Henry, just because it's Mark Henry.
I get a lot of people telling me to go check out Mark Henry, and you know what? There's something about him. He's a pretty polarizing figure in the sense that some people think he's great and others think he's awesome. So you'll have to come on out on the 15th to decide for yourself. We might talk a little bit of Mark Henry a little bit later on here. We also want to let you know, if you haven't yet subscribed to our free newsletter, do so right now over at WrestleMedia.ca. It'll keep you up to date with what's happening in the WrestleMedia revolution, and it's your chance to enter enter to win 2 tickets to the Chinlock Wrestling House of Hardcore show in Kingston, Ontario, June 15th. Be like Andrew. Get yourself a pair of tickets, and you can do that by subscribing to the newsletter. All right, Andrew, before we jump into the news of the week, let's talk about some of the stuff that fans like yourself were talking about when it comes to the Wrasslun show. We talked about what you would like to see WWE do to improve house show business. Andy George Craig Gibson said, stop having the same results for every house show. I was checking out Jinder Mahal's match history the other day, and he loses to the same people in the same type of match each and every time, only days apart. Switch it up a bit, because all someone needs to do is check the results for the first one, and they've already seen it. You know, I didn't really think about that, but that's kind of a good point, right? And maybe it would be a good idea to mix things up and get guys in there fighting different opponents. Who knows what kind of chemistry we could discover, right?
Definitely. It's definitely change up the shows every now and then. I really don't like the fact that when they do like their Raw and they tell you what the match is, I really don't like that, because it's card subject to change all the time.
Yeah, it's more fun when it's a surprise. Absolutely. Michael Walsh from The Lasting Mark also chimed in saying, focus on TV. Why were house shows always packed in 98? Because we wanted to get a live version of the TV show we loved, put on a great product, and the rest will follow. I mean, he's not wrong about that. Obviously, if you are drawing people on TV, then they're going to want to come to the live house shows. Now, is that something that you think could be beneficial? The idea of like maybe doing more stuff like you do on TV, more angles and things like that, and less wrestling heavy? Or would you prefer kind of a still wrestling heavy product when you go to a house show?
I would like them to keep the story going so that, you know, I don't get lost in translation all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. We also asked if the Revival should re-sign with WWE, or if you'd like to see them go somewhere else like AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, or New Japan Pro Wrestling. Adam Wemp had said, after this last we'll say baloney segment, as much as I'd hate to see them go, they need to in order to regain a semblance of relevance, where Aaron Rakowski said, leave as fast as they can, go to AEW and feud with the Bucks, convince Cornette to manage them. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I would love to see Jim Cornette manage the Revival. I think that'd be a pretty entertaining trio.
Yeah, that'd be an entertaining trio. I don't think I'd like to see Jim Cornette with them, though.
Oh, really? Is there someone else that you have in mind, or do you think that they'd be better off on their own?
I think they'd be better off on their own, and yeah, with the recent stuff going on with them, get out of there real fast.
Do you have a preference for where you'd like to see them compete?
I think they'd probably do well in Impact or like an ROH.
I'd be really interested to see them in Impact, because I think that there are a lot of tag teams in Impact Wrestling right now with unique styles, and I think that they would carve out a nice little niche in there, because, you know, going up against a team like an LAX or even the Lucha Brothers, if they got a chance to, the North, or, man, when we saw the Rascals at Rebellion, my God, we were blown away. I would love to see the Rascals take on the Revival. Just have a nice R&R match and put them against one another.
Definitely.
We also talked about Bray Wyatt's Firefly Funhouse, but didn't get a chance to talk about Jeff DeHaan's comments. He actually had quite a bit to say about it. We asked it what you thought about the initial segments, and Jeff DeHaan said, I loved it. I feel like it has so many layers. I found myself going back and rewatching it, looking for clues, like the missing picture on the wall, and even watching the Abby the Witch video to see if there was anything interesting in the attic. I found it funny that Matt immediately blamed Vince for this. To me, this has Bray Wyatt's fingerprints all over it. I don't think this is a Brodus Clay situation. This is a giant misdirect where we're led to believe one thing and then given something else. This is a clear evolution of the character. There's so many dark and creepy undertones to this video. I can't wait for more. All that being said, it doesn't mean there isn't room in WWE to drop the ball here or pull the plug on it altogether, since there's word that shareholders and sponsors weren't fans of the segment. Oh, that bums me out a little bit, to be honest with you. To anyone who was disappointed in this, though, while I respect your opinion, I have to ask, what did you want? The same leather apron and colorful shirts that didn't get over before? Or Bray cross-dressing as the spirit of Sister Abigail again? This is something fresh and something new, and I feel it had a real chance at being Wyatt's biggest and most creatively entertaining push on the main roster. We just need patience. You don't skip to the last 30 minutes of a movie, and you don't only read the last chapter of a book. Give this a chance to play out before completely casting it aside. Or, to paraphrase Bray Wyatt in a tweet, to see a ghost, you have to believe in it. It saddens me that you all missed so much. Oh well, maybe next time. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the Bray Wyatt Firefly Funhouse vignettes?
Well, I love it. It's fresh, new. I think it's a character that's made for Bray, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. I think it's very exciting. I love the fact that he killed off one of the characters on his show this week.
Yeah. I'm
really interested to see where they go from here with this. There were children involved, which I was not expecting at all.
Yeah, that was a little creepy.
But I think that's kind of the idea, obviously. While we're talking about Bray Wyatt, let's just jump into our first story and talk about some interesting news that Bray Wyatt laid down for all his fans on social media recently. Known for his cryptic promos, Wyatt tweeted out back in 2015 that he hid a secret message among 8 consecutive backstage promos that fans never picked up on. Quote, "Fun game time. Bet you didn't know that in 2015 I did 8 consecutive backstage promos where one sentence didn't belong in each of them, but together they make up a secret message. No one ever found it. You guys never looked hard enough. First one to get it wins a prize." So some people have said that it's a wild goose chase, but Bray actually has responded to this by saying it took years before a brilliant fan found the Fibonacci sequence within a Tool album. Andrew, are you a metal fan? Do you like Tool?
I'm a metal fan. I haven't listened to a lot of Tool, but I'd be interested to find out what that whole metaphor is. But
so I'm not offending you by getting the name wrong, is what I'm asking.
No.
Okay, good. I was worried that I might be. Bray went on to say, have patience, and that fan was incorrect. So here's the question, Andrew. What do you think it is? Like, this has got to be leading towards something, right? Have you gone back and tried to look? I haven't had time to go search the promos.
I actually, because he says 15 backstage promos from 2015, there's a lot there. So you kind of got to weed through them. And I'm not sure which ones he means, so I'm going to try and weed through them and see if I can find them.
If you can, I would love for you to let us know that so that we can report it before anybody else does. But go and let Bray know first. You can get your prize, whatever that may be. Hopefully it's not a trip to the funhouse. Something tells me it's not a prize.
Maybe it's Ramblin' Rabbit's head.
Oh, God. No, that's not a prize anybody would want. Do you think that it's one of these situations where Bray kind of planned this from the beginning, or do you think this is something that he maybe was planning on doing for another character or another angle and said, well, I can fit this in here somehow? Or is it maybe that he really is just messing with all of us?
I honestly don't think he's messing with us. I think it's something he's planned for a long time and finally gets a chance to use it.
Well, let's hope that's the case, because I got to tell you, it's been intriguing, and I love the idea of a alternate reality game going on every single week through the social media of WWE's performers. I think that's a great little hook. So I don't know who came up with it, but God bless them for doing it, because it's been making Monday nights pretty entertaining.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, speaking of Monday nights, recently on Monday Night Raw, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon announced a new wild card rule that will see Raw superstars appear on SmackDown and SmackDown superstars appear on Raw. The idea is that 3 SmackDown superstars could be invited to appear on Raw each Monday night, while 3 Raw superstars could be invited to appear on SmackDown every Tuesday night. Of course, this week's episode on Raw, we saw Roman Reigns, Kofi Kingston, and the returning Daniel Bryan show up. Andrew, I want to ask your thoughts on this wild card rule. Do you like it or do you not like it?
It's going to be interesting. I just finished watching Raw about like an hour ago, so
it's fresh in your head.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting, but like they said, like it's only 3, but we ended up seeing a couple more.
Oh, that's right. We did get a few other wrestlers to show up, but to be fair, they weren't invited.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously they're breaking their rules on the first night of said wild card rule. Why do you think it is that they're initiating this rule?
I think it's to make the product a little more interesting so that fans tune in, and you never know what's going to happen. Who knows who's going to show up?
Are you in favor of it? Do you like that idea, or do you think that they should be more strict in keeping the brands separate?
I like it. Got to see where it goes, because I don't want them leaking it out on social, on Twitter and stuff before Raw. I would like them to just make it a surprise to see who comes.
See, and that might be a problem, because if the idea is they have to be invited, right, you imagine that the game plan is, well, we'll take this opportunity and invite Roman Reigns or Kofi Kingston or whomever it may be onto Raw, and then they'll have to answer the invitation or whatever. Now, they could play it off that somebody just shows up and they say, hey, what are you doing here? And they say, well, I was invited by so-and-so. I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, I understand why they're doing it. They are trying to bring up ratings, and they figure, well, let's get our most popular and marketable stars and put them front and center, put them on as many shows as possible to bring up those ratings. On the other hand, from a storytelling aspect, I'm disappointed that they're once again chipping away at the brand split. I like the idea of keeping the brands separate, because when you did get these interpromotional battles, like say at Survivor Series, they felt really special, and now a lot of that is going to be taken away. So I'm hoping that it's only a temporary fix. I'm hoping that once the ratings return to normal again, that Vince McMahon will go back to having the brands be separate and keep them separate. But who knows? I don't know. You're right. If they do come up with a good story for it, I'm all in favor of it, because at the end of the day, I like a good story. But I am being cautious about it, because we all know that whenever they've tried to do these brand splits in the past, Vince tends to get cold feet very, very quickly. And it's only been 3 years since the last brand split, and I'm fairly certain. How long did the original brand split last? It started in April of 2002, and I think it's pretty safe to say that it was pretty much over by 2010. So a little bit of a longer stretch on there, although there was a lot of going back and forth. So he's never been really patient when it comes to those brand splits, and I would like to see them enact a little bit of patience, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today. Moving over from WWE to AEW, Andrew, let's talk about this new Battle Royal, or I should say the new rules for the Battle Royal. Of course, if you watched All In back in the fall of 2018, you would know that they had the Over the Budget Battle Royal, which is one of my favorite names for a gimmick of all time. At Double or Nothing, May 25th, they're going to do it again, but this time they're calling it the Casino Battle Royale, which I think is maybe even better than Over the Budget, given where they are. Now, they've already announced a number of different competitors for the match. Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, Joey Janela, MJF, Brian Pillman Jr., Glacier, hashtag Glacier for Hall of Fame, Ace Romero, Sunny Days, Brandon Cutler, Kip Sabian, and Sonny Kiss. However, it's the rules of the match that has got everybody talking this week. So let's run some of them down. It's a 21 wrestler over-the-top battle royal. Get it? 21, blackjack. And if you're Jake the Snake, you've got 22. It starts with 5 competitors in the ring. And then every 3 minutes, a new wave of 5 competitors enter. Lucky 21 competitor will be the last entrant, and the Battle Royal entry numbers will be picked at a later date than the time of this recording. What's your take on this pretty unique twist on a Battle Royal?
I think it's definitely different. I'm interested to see it. I've liked some of the stars that are competing in it.
From the list that they've got there of the 11 that have been picked for the 21 spots, is there anybody that you'd like to see win it or that you think will take it home?
I would like to see Joey Janela in it.
Joey wait, now is Joey still injured?
Nope, he came back at his spring break.
Okay, my apologies then. I apologize. Go ahead.
Joey is an interesting individual, so I'd love to see him do that.
To say the least.
The other competitor I'd love probably to see win it is Sonny Kiss.
Yeah, you know what? They have been promoting Sonny quite a bit, and I think they've got some plans for him. I could definitely see him winning it. I also wouldn't mind seeing Brian Pillman Jr. take it, because I'm a fan of his work, but I know that he's pretty closely tied to Major League Wrestling right now, and there's no bad blood there or anything, but I think that they're more than likely to go with one of their guys as opposed to an MLW guy. Now, that being said, of course, I think everybody listening knows how huge I would pop if Glacier won the Battle Royal. So as of right now, Glacier's my pick. I want him to win the Battle Royal. Hashtag Glacier for Casino Battle Royale, and then hashtag Glacier for Hall of Fame. Man, that AEW Double or Nothing is going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, man. I think we got time to talk about one last thing before we head on over to our interview with Jake O'Reilly. And I want to talk about the fans tweeting Vince McMahon on a confusing and pointless storyline, and then Triple H liking it. This is a bizarre story. Triple H had fans talking on social media this afternoon when he liked a fan tweet that was sent to Vince McMahon on why the WWE ratings might be down and about how talents should have health insurance. The fan wrote, quote, "At Vince McMahon, maybe the problem with the Raw and SmackDown ratings isn't due to wrestlers being injured. It's that you put confusing and pointless storylines on. Although it wouldn't hurt if you gave your wrestlers insurance. Just a thought." Now, Triple H apparently liked this tweet, but then within 3 hours, he unliked it, and it no longer appears under the tabs on his account. So let's break this down piece by piece. First, let's talk about the tweet. What do you think of what that fan wrote at Vince McMahon?
I don't think he's wrong on most levels, but he does just point out to Vince that, like, your injured superstars are why I don't think you're getting your ratings, but it's not that.
Do you think it more has to do with the product itself?
I think it has to do with the product.
Okay. And what about the idea of health insurance? Are you like one of those, are you for or against wrestlers getting health insurance?
You know what? They work for a living, and that I think they deserve health insurance because they're putting their bodies on the line every night.
You know what? You got a good point there. And now let's talk about Triple H. So do you think this was an intentional thing, or do you think this was just kind of an accident, a whoopsie that he didn't notice, and then everybody made a big deal out of it?
I think maybe he liked it and was like, "Oh wait, I might not want to like that, so I should unlike it."
So you think he did like it and then realized, "Oop, this is going to catch me some heat. I better unlike this."
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that his finger slipped. I don't think this was real. I don't think he would have done that. Maybe he did, though. I don't know. Maybe. Well, I guess we'll know if Triple H starts a storyline with Vince in which he's all of a sudden the babyface again. If he does, then maybe we'll know that he was doing it for storyline purposes, right? Or
either that, or we don't ever see Triple H again.
Yeah, that could be it too. That's going to do it for us, Andrew. We're going to throw things over to a clip of our interview with Jake O'Reilly, who's going to be competing this Saturday in Collingwood at Danger Zone, taking on the Canadian heavyweight champion Cody Deaner with Ken Shamrock in his corner. Let's go to the clip. I'm pleased to be on the line with the number one contender to the Canadian heavyweight championship, the man who will attempt to wrest it away from Cody Deaner on Saturday, May 11th in Collingwood at the Collingwood Curling Club at Danger Zone. Irish Jake O'Reilly. Jake, thanks so much for being on the program today.
No problem, man. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing great. I'm very excited for Saturday. It's going to be good to be back with the Rock Solid Wrestling crew. Going to promote WrestleMedia a bit and then jump in the ring and yell wrestlers' names very loudly into a microphone. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, you're quite good at that. Looking forward to hearing you yell my name as the new Canadian heavyweight champion.
Well, that's a very real possibility. You're going to be in the main event with Asher Benjamin in your corner. Now, before we get to Asher, I want to talk about the stipulation for the match, which is submissions. A lot of people know you as a brawler. You're very talented with your fists. A lot of people don't know how good you are as a grappler, though. Maybe explain to some of the listeners who may not be familiar with your submission techniques why this match puts you at a bit of an advantage.
Well, it puts me at a huge advantage. And you know what? Cody Deaner let his emotions get the best of him. When I challenged him to submission match, and he went for it because we had him beat up. We had him down. Asher was yelling in his face. And he played right into our hands. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 7 years. I've been amateur wrestling since I was 12 years old. I've trained in Japan with some of the greats like Minoru Suzuki, Masakatsu Funaki. By the way, those are the two guys that trained Ken Shamrock, so that's a little ironic. I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I mean, you can walk down the street and you could see a guy, and he could look like a meek little nerd, but if he knows Jiu-Jitsu, if he's been doing Jiu-Jitsu for 6 months, and you don't know any Jiu-Jitsu, you're in big trouble. I've been doing it for 7 years. Cody Deaner's never done submission in his life. So Cody Deaner in a submission match, his DDT is a non-factor. He can knock me out. Probably not going to happen, but he could. But it doesn't matter. I can't submit if I'm out cold. The key is submission. And Cody Deaner, you'll be lucky if he's walking after this, let alone Canadian heavyweight champion.
Let's talk a little bit about your background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You've been doing it for 7 years. How did that start about? Where did your interest from that come?
Well, like I said, I've been amateur wrestling since I was 12. I got into amateur wrestling because I always knew I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And when I went to Japan, we got to train with the great catch wrestlers. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when I came back from Japan in 2011, was a natural progression. It was just something I needed to get back on the mat. I needed that one-on-one competition. I get that in pro wrestling, don't get me wrong. But there's something about a guy who's literally trying to choke you unconscious. You get through simulated murder, essentially. And if you're good at simulated murder, you can do anything. And I'm really good at simulated murder.
Now, I have to ask this. If you went over to Japan and you trained with some of the greats there, certainly one would assume that maybe a man you'll be looking at across from the ring this weekend, Ken Shamrock, might have been an influence, or at least maybe you were a fan of his. Certainly you have to admit he was a big part in bringing the submission style of MMA to the world of professional wrestling, even back in the day with Pancrase.
Ken Shamrock, like all kidding aside here, him and I have been going back and forth on social media. I have huge respect for the man. He was a huge influence in my career. If you look at early pictures of Jake O'Reilly, I've got the Ken Shamrock robe, the Ken Shamrock sideburns, the haircut. Now I don't have hair anymore. But Ken Shamrock was always a huge influence on me. Even back in '93 when I would rent the UFC tapes from the corner store, there was Hoist Gracie. He was the huge superstar. He was the jiu-jitsu man. But Ken Shamrock, he always spoke to me. Just the look of the man. He looked like a superhero. And he had submission and he had knockout power, which is what I've modeled my career on. I'm not just a one-trick pony. Like you say, I do enjoy a good brawl. And I do. If I have the opportunity to punch you in the face, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that first and foremost. But if I get you on the mat and I get you in a leg lock, which again, Ken Shamrock specialty, leg locks, I've modeled my career in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and pro wrestling after Ken Shamrock. So yes, he is a big influence on me, and I'm honored to share the ring with him, but I'm also going to show him that I'm a new age leg locker, and his stuff, it's a thing of the past.
There you have it. A little taste of our interview with Jake O'Reilly. If you want to hear the full interview, very simple way to do that. Just head over to patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, put a few ducats in the bucket, and at only just $10 a month, you can start getting these full uncut episodes of the Wrasslun Show. And we have got some big guests coming up in the future that you are going to want to hear the full interviews with. Some legendary talent. Some guys who may have WWE Hall of Fame rings on their fingers. There's a little way to tease that there. In the meantime, I want to thank you, Andrew, for coming on the show today, man. I really appreciate you chatting some wrestling with me.
No problem, Adam.
And thank you, you listeners who tune in for us, especially if you're our patron, one of our patrons, like Andrew. We really appreciate your financial support. If you can't support us financially, there's lots of other ways that you can do so. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or any other podcast provider that lets you do that. Or just share this podcast with a friend or someone who you know loves to talk and listen about a little bit of wrestling. Thank you so much for joining us on The Wrasslun Show this week. I'm at Adam Conta. That's Andrew Walsh not wearing Michael Walsh's skin. That's, and when it comes to the Wrasslun show, you know what to do. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat.
This has been a presentation of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.
Here's what you're missing out on right now over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.
A lot of guys are scared of Suzuki. He would train before the shows in grappling with whoever wanted to get in the ring with him. We were warned not to get in the ring with Suzuki because he would hurt you and he would stretch you. But I have to say, that's for me anyway. I could be wrong, and I'm sure he's done this to other guys. But for me, he was always very, very respectful, very nice guy. Bought me coffees at the rest stops along the way. Thanked me for being on tour with him, which is amazing considering he's been in pro wrestling and MMA for 30 years. Speaking of veterans not hazing people. So I think it's amazing. I think it's well deserved. He's a great guy, and he's a really good pro wrestler and a good fighter.
Want more? Sign up now at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.